Hi, and welcome to another podcast by the Jack News. Thanks for joining us. My name is Ron Nielsen. I have Kelly Ward with me. How are you, Kelly?
Hey Ron, doing well.
So I've got some poll results to go over. Tonight's the night before the election, so we're getting ready to
Oh,
release our election podcast, our election
I,
night Eve podcast. So do
I
you have
can't
any
believe.
special things you want to go over first, or?
Yeah, so I was looking over the news headlines. Found this interesting one with Tim Walz, my favorite knucklehead, calling Elon Musk that gay guy. What do you think of that, Ron?
Well, I read about that too. I guess Elon Musk didn't throw up too big a fit. I guess he's pretty secure in himself. He doesn't really care what other people think. He can do whatever he wants. So I guess he didn't mind being called gay. So
No, I
that's,
think his response was they don't actually mind being called gay. I think if you're the richest man in the world, a lot of stuff just like water off the duck's back, right?
yeah, he probably could care less what people think. But interesting. We'll talk more about Elon. I know that he's doing a big interview today with Joe Rogan. So
Yes.
we should talk about that. I've got some poll results, so I
Yeah, let's
want
go for it.
those.
Everybody's waiting for that.
So the surveyfever.com Jack News poll results, public reports, and they were just released a while ago, and they show the final of the 10-week tracking study, and it's presidential and Senate, and there's a 7 targeted swing states that are tracked. And we've watched Kelly from the very beginning. Trump was down, and every week he just kept getting more and more momentum. He was
Yep.
closing in. I mean, he was behind in all 7 of the targeted swing states.
Hmm.
And as the weeks have gone by, he's just inched his way up, and closed the gap. And tonight, he is. I mean, there's 7 swing states, and he's up in 6. So what we have on the poll is, he first started getting up ahead of Harris in Arizona and Georgia, and he still is. But now we're seeing that, he's ahead in North Carolina, uh, Nevada. Survey Fever is predicting he's going to win Michigan and Pennsylvania. So we're
Wow.
talking. I mean, we're talking the only state that's got Harris up, according to this poll, is Wisconsin, and Harris is up by a half a point. So it's a 48-47.5 race. So that's crazy.
So the question I have for you, Ron, Survey Fever, did they begin their surveys once Harris was the candidate?
Yes, right after that time. That's when they started.
Yeah, I think that the post-election analysis, provided Trump wins, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at that as a pretty remarkable uh, comeback for a political campaign.
Well, I mean, he was behind in all 7 swing
Yep.
states, and he's up on 6 of them, and the Wisconsin's super tight. I mean, if you want to go to jacknews.net, you can look at the results and see the latest numbers. But the Pennsylvania race, the Wisconsin race, and the Michigan race are all within 1 point, and they're very tight. The margin of error on these studies is 3.7, and I mean, they're going to come right down to the wire. I think that's interesting to say that, we talked about this before. Jill Stein is
Mm,
campaigning in Michigan and Wisconsin with
right.
primarily the Muslim vote. She's the Green Party candidate, and she's spending all her time there trying to get the Muslim vote, with the understanding that if she can disrupt the apple cart and make the Democrats Harris not win, then she can gain a little credibility for her party as
Right.
a threat. Like, hey, listen to us, or we're going to go back out there and disrupt your campaign. because they're polling basically from the Democratic Party. But she's, or people who normally vote Democratic, but she's campaigning specifically in those states, specifically to go after the Muslim vote.
Mhm.
So I know that there's a little bit of a Muslim vote there.
Right. In both Pennsylvania, well, all three states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. And Kamala is only polling at about 40% in that community, and Jill Stein at about 42%.
Well, we're talking about, I mean, they're not huge numbers. I'm looking at it right now myself. We're talking about a couple 100,000 people per state in those three states. Those three states are oftentimes referred to as the blue wall, meaning that they've been kind of held by the Democrats of late. And they're kind of like you got to kind of break down that blue wall if you're going to win as a Republican. But we're only talking about a couple 100,000 Muslims that she's going after. But if she could get 40% of those or 50% of those, I mean, that could, in a race that's under a point, I mean, that could be the difference in this whole election.
Oh yeah, I mean those are states that are won or lost by 20,000 votes. So a swing of this magnitude could definitely mean a loss for Kamala Harris.
So back to this study. I mean, right now, what according to this, if Trump takes all six of the states, and again that would be Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, and and we're talking about a super tight margin. If Harris takes Wisconsin with half a point, I mean we're talking about Trump at 302 in the electoral college votes,
Hmm.
and Harris Walz at 236 votes. And of course, you only need 270 to win. So, according to this poll, Trump will win. Even though we probably won't find out the results of the election for many days because
Yeah,
these
yeah.
races are so tight. It's going to take a while and to get all the ballots in and count them in. It's going to take a few days.
Well, what are you seeing on the Senate side?
Well, the Senate, we've been tracking that for the same length of time. Just in the eight races that were considered toss-ups across the country, these are races that are really close, and frankly, the Democrats have it on the line because they're the majority in the House. I mean, in the Senate, and they control the Senate. But if the Republicans were to gather, one or two races here out of these toss-up races, they will control the majority of the Senate, and that's what we're seeing. So we've been tracking in 8 states for 10 weeks: Arizona, Michigan, Montana, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. Again, if the Republicans can win in a couple of those states, it changes everything. And right now, we're seeing, we've been watching for weeks. And Montana is going Republican. I mean, right now the Republicans up 50% to 46% in Montana, and in West Virginia, we have the former governor of Justice, Republican, up 53 to 39. So the Republicans would take West Virginia. But here's the surprise, Kelly. It looks
Mhm.
like we've been watching for the last couple of weeks Ohio tightening. And right now, we're seeing Marino at 47 and a half and the Democrat Brown at 47. So it looks like the Republicans are going to take Ohio. So that would be three of these 8 states going Republican. The Republicans will control the majority in the House
Mhm.
or in the Senate.
Yeah. So what looked like victory in on a number of fronts for the Democrats 10 weeks ago has done a complete turnaround. Quite a I mean quite a failing on the campaign strategy part, seems like to me on the Democrat side.
Well, that's something we need to talk about at some point. There probably is a lot of discussion about what happened when this election is over, but there's still some fun stuff going on. Um, I mean, I'm kind of interested in, the minority campaigns, the minority candidates. We're talking about independents and third party campaigns that are running around the country.
Hmm.
Mainly in the presidential election. I mean, there's a lot of candidates. Most people don't realize there's in many states there are a lot of people on the ballot for
Right,
president.
right.
And you look at them, you can't, you never even heard of half these people. But of the organized element that's running for third party, I mean, you have the Libertarian Party and the Green Party, um, and then you also have on this cycle Cornel West, who's
Hmm.
running um, an organized campaign and is targeting mainly African Americans. Um, and we've talked about the Greens, the Libertarians. We could talk about them for a moment. I mean, they have action going on all across the country,
Right.
and of course, their watermark of success was the Gary Johnson campaign in 2016, and that developed a lot of new followers for the party. In my opinion, last cycle in 2020, they still had a lot of shirt tells that they were seeing with the results from that election. I think they got around 1% last cycle in 2020,
Right.
and Gary was about 3.5% in 2016. But I'm not sure they're going to fare so well this cycle. I mean, it is super, super hard to predict what their numbers are going to be, or when you get down below the margin of error. I mean,
Right.
that statistically, I mean, that's just a total guess. Um,
Well, right. And that's why these small where there's an isolated impact, like we were just talking about with Jill Stein in a couple of states with a select group of voters who would normally be voting for would normally be voting for one of the major party candidates is now slipping away into a third party candidate. Because I think when you're talking about these numbers that are below the margin of error, you're talking about disenfranchised voters who would not go to the polls for a one of the two party candidates. They're diehard third party candidate voters, and they're either not going to the polls or they're going and voting for a third party candidate.
well, that's when they really make a difference, when they can
Mhm.
show they're pulling people from one of the main two parties. But we also, we need to remember we've got Kennedy on the
Right.
ballot still in several of those states. What's he on? He's on all three of the blue wall states, right?
Yes.
And so Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. He's on the ballot. So that'll be an interesting thing. I mean, I think people might come in um, and vote, and just really can't vote for the two main characters, and they're just going to want to file a disenfranchised ballot,
Yep.
and that'll be an answer they can find with Kennedy, I guess, is same as the other minority candidates.
Mhm.
So, but I don't know how much support he's going to get. I can't imagine that we're going to see more than 2.5% combined from all of them across the board in any state, really. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, in my opinion, I think Green's going to be the Green Party, and Jill Stein is going to be somewhere close to what she's been before, around 1%. Unfortunately, I think the Libertarian Party just hasn't been able to garner a lot of media support, and they just haven't. I haven't really seen a lot of activity in the media. That's just part of the game. Sometimes it's almost impossible to get for a
Right.
small party candidate. But I think they're going to be somewhere below 1%. Um, I would guess it'd be above a 0.5%, but I think they'll be a little below 1% nationwide. That's my
Hmm.
thought. I don't know what you think. And Cornel West is going to be in pockets around the country. There's certain
Right.
pockets of support he's going to have. His overall national numbers will probably be somewhat small, but he'll have some strong pockets of support, maybe in some big urban areas,
Right.
and that's what we're going to see from him. I don't know that he's going to, change too much, other than the fact that probably everyone that supports Cornel West um, probably would have otherwise supported the Democratic ticket, or maybe they wouldn't have voted at all.
Yeah.
So, what are your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Well, I think that Bobby Kennedy has done a really good job since endorsing Donald Trump of pushing advertising out to his supporters to say, don't vote for me. And I think that he's had enough running room in terms of numbers of weeks of doing that. He's been well funded to go and uh, emphasize his support for Donald Trump through paid advertising. That I think his impact in these states will be marginal. Um, and I say that knowing that the court case of last Tuesday, in which RFK was asking to be removed from the ballot in Wisconsin and Michigan, was a disappointment to RFK and the Trump campaign. So they may be seeing things slightly different, or they obviously don't want to risk the few people who are going to go to the polls and still vote for RFK, um, that may have voted for Donald Trump.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. I think that's completely his vote totals will be completely disenfranchised voters that just have, they're kind of deciding, well, should I just leave that spot blank, or
Right.
should I actually fill in somebody, because they can't stomach either Harris or Trump, and so there they go. But that's I mean, they probably those people probably wouldn't vote for either one, Harris or Trump anyway. So possibly you could look at it that way and say the votes that Kennedy gets are votes of people who probably wouldn't have voted. I don't know. Maybe that's an option you could look at. I mean, it'd be interesting to have a third party contender who is actually garnering some major support. I think, in these elections, you think that, especially when they're very cantankerous, and you have two, well, specifically, like Trump has got a lot of negatives, and I mean, I think Kamala's negatives have gone up. She wasn't that high before, but they certainly have gone up over the last couple of months. There are people who are just saying, look, I just don't really want to vote for either one. And another option is always nice, but
Mhm.
it's very difficult to have a third party option. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of,
Well, as we know, nearly impossible because of
that's,
the
you've got to have, I mean, it's hard to raise that kind of money. I think in Johnson's campaign, I don't know where that campaign, 16 million, I think was somewhere around there, that I was told.
yeah.
But we needed probably three, four times that just to make some
Yeah.
kind of a minor dent in the discussion. Um,
Well,
and then you build,
it,
and then you breathe, when you have that kind of a little bit of money, you kind of can, I don't know, create an atmosphere that draws attention for the media. You've got to get a lot of media support.
well, you had Bobby Kennedy, who was polling fairly decently and still could not get uh, into the debates. Now that there was only, it was not a heavy debate season this year. However, however, he could not get. He had to run into the same problem with the debate commission that Johnson ran into, which was not being allowed in, despite the fact meeting some thresholds for polling data, and again the same issue of the major polling uh, organizations were not including the third party candidate in the polls, and so he ran into the same buzzsaw that the other third party candidates run into, and even with his name he couldn't overcome it.
Well, I don't, yeah, I mean I think that the days of the debates are kind of waning. Um, they didn't, I mean, we had one debate, a VP debate, and that well, I guess we had two debates. I mean, Trump debated both Biden and Kamala Harris, so two
Right.
debates. But really, it's one debate, and then they had the vice presidential debate. I mean, I think the days of the debates, say like, Kennedy, Nixon, um, do not exist anymore, and we're not seeing the value of them, especially with the quick sources of media and the exchange of information and the way you can watch and produce things so much easier and readily available for people now. I just don't know that there's a lot of value. And you may see that, this cycle they didn't really use them, and you may see that, next cycle they don't become that big of a deal. Um, Social media and everything on digital media has just changed the world dramatically. But I was gonna, you had a note here about the Kamala on Saturday Night Live
Oh yeah.
story.
Did you watch it?
I haven't been able to watch it yet. I read about it. I heard that she spoke through a mirror. But
Yeah, I ended up watching it, and I don't know that commentary on her performance is worthwhile. But one thing I did note was that the FCC commissioner Brendan Carr had said as soon as it was announced that she was going to be on there that they probably have NBC probably has a equal time provision violation, and the reason he cites that is because there is no time between now and the election for them to offer Trump equal time and have it um, uh, be um, uh, equal to that time that they've given Kamala.
well, I thought they gave Trump some time this afternoon. They gave
They
him
did, yes, this afternoon, but Saturday
30.
Night Live does not run till next week.
They're not going to run it until next week.
Well, no, they're not going to run. No, it's only once a week, Ron,
No,
on
no, no. They were
Saturday.
going to give him a time. I think he was on some other show. They gave him a minute and 30 seconds.
Oh, I see.
They were talking about that. I'm not really sure now. We're kind of talking about something we don't know anything about.
Well,
But
that's interesting.
I heard they were going to give him some time.
So do you think that's commensurate? So the audience for their morning show, is it the same audience as Saturday Night Live? And does it have the same
I
impact?
mean, it'd be, nothing's going to be the same. Every show's different. Every show has different audiences, bases. So you can never get the same thing. They'll have to try and make it as equal as possible. I don't know. I mean, I guess my understanding was that Trump's campaign was cutting a minute 30 kind of short speech.
Okay.
Minute 30 they were going to release somewhere. But I haven't heard as of yet whether that's actually happening or happened or not. But they were trying to put it together for today.
Okay. Well, that's a solution that might have some merit.
Yeah, I
And
mean, every show's got different audiences, and it's hard to compare them all. But today we've got Elon Musk on Rogan, Joe
right,
Rogan, and you've had JD Vance, you've had Donald Trump all of late,
right.
and he endorsed Trump today in the Elon Musk interview,
Yeah,
and
that's interesting.
so I mean the interesting thing I think is that Joe Rogan's interviews are so long. I mean we're talking
Right,
like hours, three
right.
hours of interviewing. I mean that's a long time.
It's a very long time. It's a great format, I think, for really anybody, any politician, anybody who wants to really have a discussion about ideas or their own selves or whatnot. But he's offered that to the Harris Walz campaign, and they didn't take him up on it. So in terms of equal time and as we were talking about with NBC, I think he's fully compliant with that, and the fact that they have chosen not to go on there, and I think this will carry on to this discussion about Saturday Night Live. The purpose of going on a Saturday Night Live is to show yourself as an individual of a certain ilk. So if that comedic format allows you to be seen as somebody who's more accessible, if you will, or of a has have that sort of lightness to you, and the fact that they've given Trump time on NBC, but not time in that same format to portray himself in that same light. I don't know that matches the equal
Well,
of the equal time.
see, the FCC law the only require is only for non-news stations. So, like a news station does not have to give equal time. So they could, so like Rogan does not have to interview Kamala Harris or anybody. He can interview whoever he wants.
Yeah, right. It's only for those that are licensed by. So Rogan's not licensed for.
No, no, it applies to all news stations. So news stations are not FCC required to give equal time. It's only non-news stations. So non-news programs. So like programs that like Saturday Night Live is a non-news program. So they don't have to, I mean, they have to comply. If they're going to put somebody on their show, they have to give equal time. But a news station does not have to interview everybody.
Okay, and where does Rogan fall into that?
He's a news station on the words. I don't know whether the podcast is managed by the FCC or not, but
Okay.
when we're talking about stuff now we have no idea about.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know. My
It's a
understanding was all news broadcasting that was managed by overseen by the FCC has to, does not have to require equal time. It's only non-news that does. And very, very rarely do non-news outlets, put
put
presidential
the politicians out there. Yeah, right.
candidates on there anyway.
So the Rogan endorsement brings up this topic of these late in the campaign endorsements, because we saw over the weekend several endorsements for Kamala. We saw Arnold Schwarzenegger, Harrison Ford, LeBron James. Do they have impact? So in today's show with Elon Musk, does a Joe Rogan endorsement have an impact? Does a LeBron James endorsement have an impact for Kamala? Same with Harrison Ford and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, that's pretty interesting to determine. I'm not sure that some of these Hollywood celebrities really have that much um, of an impact. I don't know that Harrison Ford is going to really make that much difference. I mean, I think he's a liked person, but I don't think people look at him as somebody they're going to use as an opinion leader. I mean, Arnold Schwarzenegger I mean, he's a celebrity figure, but he was also a Republican governor of California. And so he's crossing the aisle, and that's interesting. And he's also a member of or his ex-wife was a member of the Kennedy family. So we had, you know, Bobby Kennedy leaving the Democratic Party just to endorse Trump, and we have Schwarzenegger going over to the Democratic Party. But I don't know how much of a following he would have. I think LeBron James could. I know LeBron James
Mhm.
is always playing around with politics and he's trying to get his nose in there and make comments. And sometimes I think it backfires on him. And at times I think he upsets people just by making comments about politics, probably more than he helps himself. But, I think he has a big following and there's a lot of people that, would see him as someone they'd like to listen to. The unfortunate thing for Harris is that LeBron James's endorsement came so late. And the
Right.
election's over, and suddenly he shows up and makes an endorsement. I mean, if he was going to help her out, he should have done it a long time ago. I mean, he waited until the very end. That's not quite as helpful, but nice, I guess, for her. But
Well, I think that's one of the thoughts I had about these endorsements is if you can't put your full weight behind it, like a Taylor Swift endorsement, did she put her full weight behind that endorsement of Kamala?
well, it sounds like she couched it. I mean, she said that she was endorsing Kamala Harris because of the women's rights issue and the whole discussion about, abortion. And So she couched her endorsement, and then she's done nothing really since. I mean,
Right.
there's all kinds of talk today about Taylor Swift missing the Chiefs game and going to Pennsylvania for Kamala Harris's rally. Of course, Taylor Swift is from Pennsylvania, and they kind of implied they were having some special guest show up, and everyone thought it was Taylor Swift, and they've been talking about it for days. That
Hmm.
Taylor Swift was going to go and support Kamala Harris. Well, she didn't go. She went to the Chiefs game, and then she made some big post on Instagram today. Taylor Swift did, thanking everybody for coming to her, her giant tour all over the world, for helping and coming and being a part of the experience, and then said, make sure you go vote tomorrow. There was no mention in there about vote for Kamala Harris. It was just make sure you go vote. Tomorrow's your day, go vote. So I think she came out with an endorsement and then didn't really say anything else again.
Yeah, and
That,
you
that
see, yeah, that doesn't go over well. But you see on the Trump side, you got Elon Musk, RFK Jr., and Tulsi Gabbard, extremely active as surrogates and co-stars of the rallies. And on the Harris side, you've got Oprah, Liz Cheney, and a handful of other people, maybe Beyonce. But they sort of did that bait and switch on Beyonce also in Houston in terms of she was there to perform and she didn't. But that those are instances in which you've got an endorsement and then you have the weight of that individual carried forward out into the campaign trail. And I think those have significant impact.
Well, I think certain people have more impact than others. I mean, I think RFK Jr. has been a big impact for Trump. I think Tulsi Gabbard has been working really hard. I think she's a positive influence. I think she's extremely likable and presentable and does a good job. I think people like her. And she was a Democratic congressperson from Hawaii.
Right.
So, presidential contender in the Democratic Party. So I think she's a big plus. And then Elon Musk, I mean, that's I mean, that's just that's the big elephant. And
Hmm.
I mean, not only has he got the money to fund things, which he has done, but he's made a personal impact by going to the rallies, talking about things, going on shows like Rogan's show today, and then nonstop on. He's got his minions on nonstop on X, making comments all the time
Right. Right.
about don't vote for Kamala, vote for Trump. I mean, it's just pretty much a nonstop conversation. So he, I think, has just been a major input. I mean, you talked about some of these other people for Harris. I mean, yeah, Oprah's a big player. I think Oprah can make a difference. She probably could have done a lot more. I think she's been doing a lot, but I think she could have done more and probably really been. I mean, I think she has the capability of making a big difference. I still find Liz Cheney and the Cheneys as a distraction. I personally would never have supported having them been involved. I just don't see what they bring to the table within polling Republicans or undecideds to support Kamala Harris. I just don't see that. And I think she completely churns off Democrats. So you're
Yep.
bringing someone you're having this raw rally where you're kind of going all, hey, we're going to win, everything's great, and then Liz Cheney stands up to speak, and they're thinking, what? We don't want to listen to her. I mean, all she's
Right.
going to say is, I can't stand Donald Trump and I hate the guy and I hope he loses. Okay, got it. But, everything that her and her father have stood for has basically that's very statist and it's very different than what most liberals are looking at. So I think that I just don't see the point of that
Yeah.
discussion with her. So the Harris campaign, which is traditional for the liberal element of the Democratic Party, they have pretty much all of Hollywood in their pocket. I mean, just about anybody who's anybody in Hollywood supports the Democratic nominee. And if you don't, then you face backlash and possible ostracization from the Hollywood establishment. I mean, you only see a few people who are willing to stand up and take a different viewpoint, and they get attacked. So it's a risky venture. But going back to the Hollywood support, I don't know if all that really makes that much difference. I think it depends a little bit on who the celebrity is and whether someone specifically likes that person. I think it's a hit and miss game. I don't think there's anybody who's been too involved that's been, just a home run player for the Harris campaign. But I think all of them have done a little bit of help, and there's been a lot of people involved. Anyway, I mean, the campaign's season's wrapped up, and we're we're waiting for the election results like everybody else. Um, I wanted to clean up a couple of things that we talked about earlier, Kelly. Um, One is that on the discussion about the FCC, just for clarification, it's correct that the FCC does not require news outlets to pertain to, um, having equal opportunities for both candidates if you're a designated news outlet. And also, all the podcasts and video content, stuff like that on social media are excluded from FCC. And then we learned just while we're doing the podcast that the Trump campaign announced that NBC today had provided a 1 minute Trump video. This was in exchange for Harris being on the Saturday Night Live skit. So they gave Trump a 1 minute video, which they played during NASCAR and the NFL broadcasts, and that's to satisfy the equal time rules. Just wanted to clear that up so we didn't create confusion. Anyway, hope everybody gets out and votes. And if you have any comments about the podcast or anything else on Jack News, you can write to info@jacknews.net and send us your comments, good and bad. We'd appreciate hearing from everyone. Thanks for joining in. Talk to you soon.